Hey everyone, I want to welcome you guys to the next episode of the new Hollywood podcast, where we interview some of the most fascinating creators, people in business, just dreamers who chased after a passion to make it happen. Today you're in for a treat. We have Sharon Eva. That's her first and last name. It's not a middle name that she's going by. She's probably one of the most interesting people I've met out here in LA. She's a publicist. She's worked on projects such as Neon Carnival, the most exclusive party at Coachella. She's worked with some of the biggest influencers such as Lexi Pantera, Dom Benjamin, Hannah Stocking, Leanne V. She does a lot of stuff in the event space. She's very mysterious at exactly what she does on a day-to-day basis. So it's going to be a great opportunity for all of you to learn a little bit more about what Sharon does, how it plays a big role in the ecosystem of Los Angeles, since most people end up finding their business in interpersonal relationships. And that's a big part of what the podcast is all about, is people finding their passions and making things happen by the random people that they build relationships with. So I really want to thank you for coming on today, Sharon. And where I like to start off with everybody is for them to tell a little bit about where they're from and what got them interested in doing what they're doing.
Well, thank you for that intro, Ashwin. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I moved to Los Angeles, I believe in like 2013, and just started in the entertainment industry from here.
Okay. How did you decide that you were moving to LA? What brought you out here originally?
So when I lived in Seattle, I was actually a drama film major up at University of Washington in Seattle. And I was focused in business, but I really missed that creative outlet that I had, because I've always loved acting and singing. And so I decided to work at Sundance Film Festival as kind of a creative outlet. I've never been there, but you always read about it, and I love film. And so I decided to just start working one year. And I worked in the press office at Sundance, and I fell in love with it. I loved just the culture, the people that were around me, and the films that I were watching. I was just so moved by the content that I was seeing and the people that I was meeting, that I just wanted to move to LA, because everybody at Sundance was pretty much from LA, and I loved everyone that I met. So I eventually moved out here because of that.
Okay, so when you moved out here, did you have a job, or were you just trying to figure it out?
I was working, I already was scheduled to work at LA Film Festival and LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. I think I said that right. And so instead of getting a hotel, I decided to get a 6-month lease and just see if I liked it here. And I never moved back to Seattle.
Well, you definitely liked it, because it's a couple of years after that. Now, how long were you with the LA Film Festival?
I pretty much worked with them. I was a film festival buff. So I worked at South by Southwest, Seattle Film Festival. I worked at Tribeca. So with LA Film Festival, I think I worked with them for 3 to 4 years. I worked at AFI. I loved AFI Film Festival. Okay. Yeah, so I was working at all of them.
Were you there in 2015, 2016?
I think so, yeah.
I won a award of merit at Los Angeles Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
Which is way too funny.
Congratulations.
Yeah. No, I made a movie with Jody Steele, the artist that I manage on Facebook, called Daddy, about a girl with daddy issues in LA.
Oh, wow.
And we did a short with less than $3,000 in 1 month.
Oh, wow.
Which was such a trip.
Was that when Daddy Issues was popular? Because I work with Violet Benson.
No, this was when Violet was still working as an accountant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
Which is way too funny.
I know. Have you met her before?
I have not, but it was actually super funny when I first started doing influencer stuff. Mm-hmm. One of my friends from college works at NBC. His girlfriend worked with Violet. And then she's like, wait, I know influencers. And I'm like, which influencer do you know? And she's like, it was a parody page. At that point, it wasn't even really clear whose page it really was.
Oh, yeah. When she was mysterious.
And it was she's like, I worked with this girl as an accountant. And I'm like, that's kind of a trip.
That's awesome. Yeah. I loved what she did with her brand. And I think she has an upcoming TV show soon. So with Warner Brothers.
That's so gnarly.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll definitely make for a very interesting TV show.
Yeah, of course.
So you went from being a film buff to a publicist. What made you decide that you didn't really want to be on like the filmmaking side? Because that's what a lot of people that major in film, go to the festivals, ultimately want to do. What made you like really excited about being on the PR side of it?
Well, so when I worked at Sundance, I was working in the press office and a lot of the other film like Tribeca. The first thing they did was put me on the red carpet, like they call it the line. So basically, when a filmmaker premieres his film, I would be there on site to get all the media ready prior to all the talent coming in. And then there was a lot of talent that would fly into these festivals without a publicist or anyone to represent them on the carpet. So then we would be working on behalf of the talent as well to make sure that they got interviews, to try to promote the film and the talent as much as possible to make the film festival a success. So I started doing that, and I really liked it. You know, I liked all the reporters and journalists that I would meet, and all the talent. They were just so grateful that I was there, like other people that were working at the festival, helping them, trying to get them as much exposure as possible. And I really liked behind the scenes. So I just continued to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wicked cool. Did you have any mentors when you like started getting into this space?
Gosh, no. I want a mentor right now, to be honest. You know, I'm doing a lot on my own, but I still would love to. I mean, I just love learning from people. So any veterans that want to help me, I'm all ears. You know, I think as human beings, we're constantly learning and bettering ourselves, and you'll never perfect any craft, you know, because we're constantly evolving and things are changing. And I'd love to talk to veterans in the industry, but it's crazy right now because the media is changing a lot. It's shifted from print to digital. And then even with the digital, a lot of millennials are getting their content through social media. It's almost like they're not even reading the online blogs. You know, a lot of like it could be as easy as watching a social media influencer talking about a movie that they want to go watch or they just saw. And a lot of millennials are getting their content from that versus print. So I think the publicity genre, like when it comes to work, it's shifted. You know, it's different now, and I think a lot of the veterans, they're having a hard time adjusting or a hard time understanding the power that influencers have on social media. So maybe in a way they can learn from me too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say is like, there's a lot to be gained from working with someone that's younger and working with the influencers and more in the scene like you are versus somebody that's 50 to 70 that's been doing PR for a really long time.
Yeah.
They know all the traditional writers, but the way we consume entertainment and the way that we consume media is completely different right now than it was back like 20 years ago.
Exactly. I remember it's interesting because when I started in LA, I don't know, for some reason, I started working with a lot of influencers right away. And so I was trying to get them into events, and a lot of these gatekeepers, these publicists that were in charge of all these high profile events, they just didn't care about influencers and they didn't understand the power. And then I think brands started to tell these event coordinators and publicists, like, we want influencers at these events. And I still think a lot of them don't understand why, but they're just doing it because they're told. But I see the shift because now I'm actually getting a lot of invites from past like event coordinators or publicists asking me to bring people that they used to deny, which is interesting. So I'm glad that people are starting to understand the power of social media influencers.
No, it's really an ever-changing paradigm because like when I first started in the event space about 10 years ago, it was really traditional celebrities and tastemakers. Mm-hmm. And a tastemaker is very different than an influencer because usually a lot of these tastemakers don't really have a following.
Yeah.
They're just known in the particular city that they're from. They're either in the art, the fashion, or lifestyle community.
Yeah.
But the real value for a lot of these brands, more than that person being interested or that tastemaker being interested, which there's still value in, is these new generation of influencers and content creators that have that digital audience that they can pull a lot of data off of. They can retarget and sell their products to, which is kind of a trippy space that you found yourself into.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, how did you figure out that like getting into events and being able to provide that as a value-added service was something that the influencers were looking for? Did that just organically come up in a conversation, or were you just already working the event scene from being a publicist and they started asking to tag along?
So working at film festivals, there was a lot of events and parties that came with that. And I just knew like a lot of influencers. It's interesting because I work with a lot of different types of talent. So there's like social media influencers, and then there's like actors and musicians. And it's funny how each of them look at each other as like grass is greener on the other side, because social media influencers, although they have a huge audience and they have tons of views and likes and comments, whereas a lot of like actors that I know on like big HBO TV shows like Ballers and things like that, like Donovan Carter, or is it
Donovan Carter?
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, Donovan. So like, I think right now he probably has like 40, 50,000 followers on Instagram, but he's on a huge TV show and he's been on it for, I think about 3 seasons now, maybe even 4.
I think it's the 4th season right now, and the 5th is it's the 4th or 5th that's coming out right now.
Actually, I think that's how we kind of met, was through him almost, right? Something like that.
We actually met through Adam Wahid. Before he was an influencer.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Donovan came up in a conversation though. So
Donovan has the at that point I had a personal trainer, and the personal trainer that I had was also Donovan's personal trainer.
And Adam's too, right? Or no?
No. I was working out with that personal trainer, and then me and Adam just decided to start holding each other accountable to go to the gym.
Okay.
So ended up stop training.
So with Donovan, he has 50,000 followers, but he's been on this huge network with The Rock and all these like great actors. And then you have somebody like Don Benjamin, who has like 2 million followers on Instagram, but doesn't have like the huge TV show that Donovan has. And so like Don is trying to get where Donovan's at, and Donovan's trying to get where Don's at via social media, which is interesting. So I hear a lot of like traditional actors like wanting to why can't I get my social media up like the way that, a lot of these people that aren't even on TV, big TV shows or big musicians, they just don't understand. And then vice versa, like all these people with huge followings, they're just like, well, why aren't networks coming to me with like a TV show or a film, because I have this huge following. So it's interesting. So some of them are crossing over, but I see the struggle between both of them. So for me, I'm always like, the solution is you need to go out to events, you need to get exposure, you need to meet people in the industry, because a lot of these events, there's agents, there's television developers, there's just anyone that could there's always somebody at an event that can help you with your career. And with every like influencer that I take to an event, I swear they always meet somebody that like leads to a brand deal, or they found an agent, or they have a meeting with somebody about a TV show or a film. So these events are very important because a lot of powerful people go to these events. And I realized that very early on via Sundance, because I would meet a lot of important people. And so, and it's just to get your face out there too. So it's like, oh, she was at the Pretty Little Thing event, or, oh, like he was at the Avengers premiere. So, and it's just kind of like creating clout, creating hype that gets you noticed. And Getty's very important too, like Getty image photography. So a lot of media, they're subscribed to Getty Image. So they take the photos and then they post it on their blogs or their magazines and things like that because they have a subscription. And so if you're constantly showing up on Getty, just people start to recognize your face and get to know you, maybe look you up, and it's just great exposure for your career.
No, that's really smart. A couple of things that you brought up were particularly interesting to me because it's like the paradigm of before, back like 5-10 years ago. Athletes wanted to be rappers, and rappers wanted to be athletes. Mm-hmm. And I think that situation is kind of replaying itself with digital versus traditional actors. And I think it's just two different styles of acting, whereas, both people could do the other style of acting. Mm-hmm. It's just really that style of acting that's more underplayed that you do on television isn't really going to convert as well on social.
Yeah.
Whereas for the traditional celebrity, doing some of the goofier skits isn't really going to jive with their overall brand. So it's kind of figuring out a way to balance that act. But I think a great example of people crossing over is King Batch.
Yeah.
Amazing, traditional actor, and he's amazing on social too. And it's really just figuring out how to position yourself and also kind of humble yourself to go in for a lot of those auditions and wait in line and be treated like any other actor, which is tough when you have these big brands that are willing to pay you 6 to 7 figures sometimes for some of these deals.
Yeah. No, he's great. That's funny that you said that about the rapper jock thing, because I was at LeBron's SB after party and 2 Chainz said that when he was performing, and I was like, really? Is that really a thing? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's a very big thing. I remember Shaq started a little rap career for a period of time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Now he's a trap DJ. He's actually decent.
DJ gets paid a lot of it, like Snoop too, right?
Snoop's a DJ.
Yeah, he's great too.
Snoop's a trip. And now his son, Cordell, is coming out with some music and doing the fashion thing.
Oh, yeah. He's really big in the fashion space. Yeah, I like him. Yeah, and Batch did really well. But, he has an agent at UTA. That's who he's represented by. And they're really a great agency. So I think it's very important to try to lock in a really big agency like CAA, UTA, WME, because they pretty much control Hollywood. I mean, they're the ones that are representing the directors that can put these people in TV shows. So I remember one of my client was when she walked into WME and got signed by them, she said that they were like, yeah, we can pretty much put you in anything we want. We got this show and that show and that show. So I think that's very crucial to try to lock in with a big agency. But you could also get lost in the agency because they have so much talent that they're looking over. So it's important for a lot of talent to understand. And even getting a manager or getting an agent or getting a publicist, is a lot of people think that, once I get an agent, once I get a publicist, once I get a manager, that my career is just going to take off. But really, you always got to be self-motivated, and you really got to focus on your own content, your own career, because they're only there to really help you and develop you, but we can't make you famous. I could pitch somebody to Vogue or Paper Magazine or Just Jared, but it's really up to them to decide whether they want to put you on their platform. And so I'm all about trying to create hype and create awareness where people or blogs like Just Jared wants to put you on there. So
I think that's a very valid point that you brought up, because a lot of people go out there and they say, hey, if I just got signed by CAA or if I just got signed by WME, and for me, as somebody that's represented a lot of big traditional celebrities, athletes, and influencers, I get people that email, text, DM me, or even just find my number online and call me and they're like, hey, if you rep me, you could make me famous. And the thing is, it's very true that no one can really make you famous. You have to be willing to put in that work. My friend's dad played Peggy from the Capital One commercials. He had a manager, an agent, a lawyer, a business manager, all those people. He got that role because he self-submitted himself.
Wow.
He also took the effort to make sure people knew who he was. And I think what you mentioned about the event stuff earlier is we have so much communication going on in LA. I don't even see a lot of my good friends a lot of times because Everyone has different schedules. Everyone has timelines for a lot of these different things.
Yeah.
Events are a good way to like re-catch up with people briefly, figure out what people are working on. Then it also reminds people of like, oh, I know this person. We should figure out a way to do this project, or I have this project that would be perfect for that person.
Yeah.
So I think it's a twofold thing. You need to have the access or the ability to get in.
Yeah.
And then you need to be willing to do the work and like meet the right people.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think? What bothers me a lot about when I go to events is I can always tell who's that person that's there looking to get something. Like every person that they're going to, they're looking to try and get something.
Okay.
What do you think an effective strategy for someone looking to leverage events to build their career would be? Because you go probably equally as much, if not more than I do. I see you out pretty much at every event.
Yeah. What do you mean by the person looking out to get something? Like you mean like the talent or just
no, like sometimes there are people like at a lot of like a little bit more of like the formal events where they're literally just trying to pass out as many business cards to as many people as possible. That's what I mean by like trying to get something, not like people wanting to get a deal, because obviously that's what most people want to do.
Yeah.
What I mean is more like a facetious attempt to try and meet people to do something, you know, being a little bit too forceful.
Yeah, no, I get it. You know, I definitely, when it comes to events, I also, like when I'm with my clients, I always am very cautious about the people that they talk to too, because in LA, there's a lot of fake it till you make it. And the more that I've gone out and the more that I've gotten to know people, there's just a lot of people that you realize that you don't even know what they do, but they seem to be out all the time. And then you find out that they really don't really do anything, that they're just there to party or, I mean, there's people that said that they've wanted to do business with me, and then I would like hit them up and like follow up over and over again, and they would just be like dead. And then I realized through just asking around that they really don't do much in the industry, and it was just like all talk. So it just kind of wasted my time. So with, I think it's very important when you meet people to look them up and to do your research and background on people, and definitely ask around and see what other people have to say. Not saying that, I mean, look, we're all human beings. I'm sure that we all have people that don't like us, or maybe something bad happened, a bad business deal. So I would just take it with a grain of salt, you know, just kind of like take it in and just hear what other people have to say, but also judge people based on your own merits, your personal relationship with them and interaction, but be very cautious. So if you met somebody and a lot of people have bad things to say, there's probably a reason for that. So, and then when it comes to people that you don't know, just do your research, because there's a lot of people that I've heard just horror stories where they meet people and like, I don't know, like maybe managers that promised the world to them and they ended up spending a lot of money on different projects, and then it didn't come to fruition and they just wasted like $200,000, which is crazy. Or you know, a lot of people in the industry, they've told me that they've hired publicists and, you know, paid probably $5,000 a month, maybe more, and was expecting a lot and really got nothing out of it, or maybe just got a few write-ups. And with me, I like to like research the talent or the brand first, and then I pretty much can tell what I'm able to do for them without even having to get started on it. So if it's a brand that's just starting out and there's no celebrity affiliation, I know it's going to be tough for me to get them any write-ups. But if it's a brand that has like tons of celebrity affiliations, like you know, if they work with Chris Brown and Usher and like Rihanna's wearing their clothes, then stuff like that, that's a lot easier to get like online press for, magazine, things like that. So, but a lot of people in the industry will just take their money and not really tell them that. But I'm usually upfront, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And give them my advice on what they should and shouldn't do. So it's kind of, you just got to do your own research, because if it's your time and your money, and you're going to spend it on these people or work with these people, you got to do your research. Like, don't just take people for what they say they are, because it's sometimes not the case.
You got to give them a shit test, basically, which is make sure that the deal is actually real and it's a real project, not just a concept.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you could pay a publicist $5,000 and one publicist could, maybe give you 2 write-ups. And then if you would have hired a different one, maybe they would have been able to get you 6 ones based on their relationships. So it just kind of depends on who you hire or who's there to work hard for you. But it's just kind of, you got to take things case by case and just do your own research.
I think it's really about like the interpersonal relationship between those 2 people.
Yeah.
Because there's just some people that you're going to work better with. You know, there could be somebody that's notorious for being difficult to work with, but you just might click with that person.
Yeah.
And you just have a flow and you figure out a way of what makes sense for them, what makes sense for you, and you're just really able to dominate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which could be pretty trippy. Now, in that event space, one of the things that I notice a lot of times is people behave that they deserve to be at everything, which for somebody like I'm on both sides of it.
Yeah.
Where sometimes there are events that I'm bringing talent to and there are other events that I'm curating.
Yeah.
And I think you also do both sides, correct?
Yes.
Now, on both sides of it, there's a different angle. Like for me, I usually try and be extremely polite when I'm asking them for any of my talent or even just accommodations.
Yeah.
And on the other side, when people are overly demanding or just overly repetitive and you're just like, I'm just trying to get through like these 5,000 people that RSVP'd and trying to cut it down. What do you think the tips are on like curating the right guest list if you're the event planner? And what do you think the right approach is if you're talent or someone that's trying to get into that scene?
Jeez. Well, I don't want to get into the if you're curating the list, because that's a little tough, because I hate being like the door guy where I'm like denying people. You don't want to be the club. You don't want to be the girl at the door that's like, unless you have 3 tables. Yeah. You know what? To be honest with you, for most events, I don't even know if I want to talk about this, but I usually want to tell everybody that they all can come in and then kind of curate it at the door and try to get, the funny thing about events is that people come at different times. And so people come and go, and I like it to be packed and full and with different people. So if you somehow got my email, then I'll try to get you in. You know what I mean? Because it was already probably hard to figure out who was throwing it to begin with. So there's going to a lot of these events. I've come to know a lot of the party crashers at these events. So I see some of them RSVPing, and I just kind of ignore those RSVPs, but I still end up seeing them somehow getting in. And I just let them stay. Just like, whatever, I'm not going to... They put a lot of effort into it. Yeah, you figured out your way to get in. I'm not going to knock your hustle. I'm just like, whatever, And when it comes to like trying to get into events, it's so funny because a lot of talent that I see go out, they still don't really know. They actually just like submit their name and +1 and that's it. But you really should have a photo of yourself and just kind of like a mini bio of like what you've accomplished and like the highlights. So if you've been on any big networks, or if you've had a single that had like, maybe 30,000 streams or like 1 million streams, whatever, like just put any highlights in there. And sometimes they'll just like accept your RSVP just by the way you look, or they'll look at your bio and see that you've accomplished a lot, and they're like, sure, we'll just let that person in. So don't just put your name and a +1. Like, you got to just kind of give them a little bit more, like your photo. And I usually say the Instagram too. I think an Instagram is very key because it gives people a good representation of who a person is. Yeah, that does too. But sometimes it goes to people's junk mail when you like just put like a link. So I've like noticed that happens a lot. So that's funny. Yeah. That's a pro tip. Yeah, I know. That's why I don't know. That's hard because you want to do that. So I just tell people to just write your social media numbers, and then put the @ in your name so that way they can like look it up. But yeah, I don't know why like a lot of emails like flag any like links for some reason.
It's so counterintuitive too, because like a lot of my background and educational background is in like consumer psychographics, which is the lowest involvement decision that a person has to make, the less effort they have to make to do anything.
Yeah.
The more amicable that experience is.
Yeah.
So it's like, it seems so obvious. Just put a link so that person clicks it. And it's kind of a trip because the technology then filters it out.
Yeah.
So it negates making it easier for them.
I know. So yeah, if you don't get and you know what? Another thing too is if you don't get a response, follow up, because sometimes it just gets lost and buried, especially when you get like thousands of emails. So I usually try to follow up with the event coordinators, and then they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, like I was busy. Yeah, you guys are all confirmed. So yeah, do that. Don't think that just because they didn't respond to you that they didn't want you there. It's just sometimes it just gets lost in the hustle.
The thing I personally like when I'm at a door is if someone's just nice about it and they're not like yelling at the girls that I have at the door, trying to look it up in a clipboard.
Yeah.
Because literally the girls are just doing their job, which is to find the name and confirm that the person was there.
Yeah.
And usually if they're nice, I'll let them in. Like if
Yeah.
they just treat people well, I think
Yeah.
that's a key aspect of someone that I want at my event is just good behavior and good energy.
Exactly. And you know, a lot of times those names just get lost. Like I don't know how many events I've had people confirm for, and for some reason either they couldn't find it, or and then they find it later, or it wasn't added, and then you need that backup email to show. But it happens a lot, so just be nice, be prepared for it, and they understand, the event coordinators. Like we understand that there's definitely errors when it comes to the guest list. So if you're supposed to be there, you're probably supposed to be there. Just be nice about it. If you're angry and rude, then they'll probably just turn you away, even though you're supposed to be there. And actually, they might even see your name on the list and you're like rude. And so they're just like, oh, sorry, you're not on here. Bye. So it's important to be nice.
And I think it's a thing in the event scene specifically. It's really the same people.
Yeah.
A lot of times at every event staffing company, it's usually the same set of event staffing people.
Yeah.
The same people in the business end. And I think it's really just realizing that it's a small circle of people and just realizing that they're also in a similar position is pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if you live in LA, it's just important to be nice to everybody and try to help everyone, because it's funny how the more people I get to know and the more people I help, the easier things come for me. Doors open so much easier. And, I went from, I think, just going to smaller events to, being invited to big film premieres. So, your relationships are very important in this industry for access and for jobs and everything. So you never know who knows who, you know what I mean? So like you can meet somebody and they're friends with the owner of blah, 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 and that's their best friend. So you should just be nice to everybody. So even the party crashers, like some of them are actually friends with celebrities because they crash so much, So even with them, I'm just like, that's why I don't kick them out.
Yeah.
Because they're cool with Jamie Foxx or whoever. Like, it's so funny because I think a lot of them don't know. A lot of these celebrities don't know. Half of these people, they just see them at events. They're like, oh, you're supposed to be here.
If you're at 6 events with me, I'm going to be curious about who you are.
Yeah. But you know what? They just, it's weird. Like there's this one guy that I know of that he's like friends with Kanye. I don't know if Kanye knows that he's a party crasher. And this other guy, he's friends with Jamie Foxx. I don't think Jamie knows that he's a party crasher, but I don't say anything. I mind my own business.
Yeah, it's nobody's real business as long as somebody gets along with someone. And that's actually one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me was I'm not the biggest sports fan a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So I had growing up in Boston, I had friends that played for the Patriots, and I literally had no idea that they were an NFL player. Oh, this was just my buddy that I went to the Cheesecake Factory with on like Wednesdays.
That's hilarious.
Which is what I think a lot of people don't get about a lot of events is the quickest way for people to get annoyed if you're a party crasher is if you're that person that's like trying to harass someone for a photo or an experience. Whereas if you're just trying to authentically connect with people, you do a lot better. Because like when I first moved out here, you know, I was in the entertainment space. I knew a lot of people, but at the same time, I didn't know a lot of people in the business. And a lot of times it was just having a normal everyday conversation and relating as a person. I'd be like, oh, what do you do? And it's like, oh, you do that? Let me plug you with this person. And that usually ends up leading into some sort of type of deal. And I think going out last night, even for example, I ended up running into a couple of my buddies that I haven't seen from a long time from Phoenix. They have like 3 businesses launching. They're like, we need to catch up. And he's like, you know, you need to come out to Phoenix and check out like what we've set up. And
oh, wow.
It's pretty cool to, you know, run into that and then have, I think, third-party credibility because friends of yours that you've actually invested in making a friendship with will generally introduce you to other people that could benefit you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the biggest part in life. It's just reciprocity. You treat people well without expecting anything and you put out into the world what you're working on and what you're doing. People generally want to try and help other people. It's just the nature of being in a tribe.
Yep, exactly. I agree.
Now, I know you mentioned earlier that you've worked with a lot of big brands, from BMW to Disney to the red carpet premiere for Black Panther.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that experience? Like, do you ever just think in your mind, you're like, I'm working with like probably a very well-known brand, a massive premiere. I got all the eyes on me. How do you go about ensuring that it goes successfully?
Jeez. You know, it's weird. Like the way that I go about my life, I just kind of go with the flow. And I don't know if it's because I'm a Pisces, you know, I guess we're supposed to kind of just go with the flow. But I don't really put too much thought into a lot of things that I do, to be honest.
No?
I don't. I just
You always seem so calm.
Yeah, I am calm. And, you know, I think with Black Panther, I didn't even realize how big it was when I was working on it. Like a lot of people was telling me like this is a big deal, but I didn't really understand it.
It's another day at the office.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I'm like, oh, I'm working on another premiere because I've worked at, you know, a lot of premieres with Disney, like Pirates of the Caribbean and Avengers and all that good stuff. So it was just like another premiere for me. So, but yeah, everything went smoothly. You just got to put in good work and just reinforce your relationship. So like the people that I was working with at Disney, oh, they're so great. Like I was even telling their team, like everybody that I have ever encountered at Disney, I don't know what it is, but they are just super professional. They're really kind and they just go over and beyond anything. It's almost like I can't believe that they're even paying me to work with them. You know what I mean? Because they're just so great. Like out of, I don't know, everyone that I've ever worked with in Hollywood, just everyone is just great. They're just so gracious. And I love being in that environment. And yeah.
So they hooked you up with the Disney annual pass. I feel like that was a Disney promotion.
No, unfortunately, that like the parks have nothing to do with their premieres and things like that. So I think I've tried actually before to get hooked up. And they're like, no, sorry, we're not in charge of that. But they gave me an email to reach out. But I think the people that I was reaching out for, their socials weren't strong enough.
Yeah.
Even though they had like 4 million followers, but I don't know. They just didn't do anything.
Now, I think that's an interesting topic that you're bringing up over there is, I don't think it's necessarily, in my opinion, I don't think it's necessarily about the follower count. I think it's more about the quality of those followers. How do you think that like pitch goes into play, or how do you think brands or events are viewing follower counts? Do you think a lot of them are still viewing it as just pure numbers, overall numbers, or do you think they're looking for quality or the true fan?
You know, I think some brands and events, they know what they're looking for. And then others, they're still trying to figure out what this whole situation is, like what these influencers are. And actually, there's a lot of publicists and event coordinators that still make fun of influencers. Like they think it's a joke, and they don't understand it. Like I'm in this PR forum. I don't know if you're on it on Facebook, but the person in charge of it is like, I'm tired of people requesting free trips for influencers. Like this isn't like a free forum for influencers. Like stop making these requests. And it's not free. It's called advertising. I mean, as a publicist, like our job is to understand like when you look at TMZ, or if you look at Just Jared, like there's a website where you can look at like their circulation rate, like how many monthly visitors they have. So like with TMZ, I think it's listed like 25 million a month or something like that. But some influencers, they get 25 million views in a video, you know, if you combine their Instagram or YouTube. So having them show up at your event and post a video about them like attending your event and getting that 6 million or 3 million views is worth more than that write-up at TMZ, because they got 25 million visitors a month, but how many views are they getting on that one page that's part of that 25 million visitors per month? I mean, the numbers basically show that these influencers are very powerful and you want them. They're advertising for your event or your brand or whatever that you're trying to promote. So it's very important to have these, what I call like walking advertisements. All these influencers are walking advertisements, like you need them at your event.
I mean, I think they're much more true of an influencer in that term of having influence over other people, because when I was growing up, reality stars were just on TV. But again, with reality stars, you're in a confined environment. You have a camera crew following you around.
Yeah.
With a lot of these influencers and content creators, they film themselves all day. I feel like it's a little bit more real, and I think the fans have that two-way interaction a little bit more.
Yeah.
And what I think that value that the brand is getting in that case is it's authority jacking. It's taking that person's third-party implicit consent that they relate to, or they engage, or they support that brand.
Yeah.
And that's something that is of real quantifiable value, because that gets it into the consideration set for at least a percentage of the people that follow and view their content.
Yeah.
And even if they don't work with that product, or if that's not the right product for them, they're aware of what that product is because of the influencer.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, something I think that's really interesting that you do is a lot of the times that you work a lot of these events, you actually physically show up with your influencers.
Yeah, of course.
You spend the time to actually get to know them. And a lot of the big PR firms, you know, I've worked with a lot of large ones, they don't really have the time or the ability to do that. So I think that's a value differentiation point that you created with your influencers.
Yeah.
How did that kind of come about? How did you build out like your business model of doing it yourself?
You know, I think it's very important to be hands-on. I do know a lot of talent where they're like, oh yeah, my publicist sent me here, but you know, they're just attending on their own. But there's just so many things that could happen at an event. It's almost like important, like, like we're at an event and like I recognize a lot of people. So I'm like, oh, you need to, like as a musician, like, oh, you need to talk to that person because that person runs this label, or he's the president of this management company and things like that. So I'm always there to just kind of make strategic moves for talent. And it's also very important to a lot of the talent, like they just don't want to speak for themselves. They rather have somebody represent them and speak for them. So a lot of these journalists and photographers, they don't know who anybody is, to be honest with you. Because I actually was on the journalism side at one point where, you know, they would send you on assignments at a red carpet. You don't even know who's showing up. And even if they are showing up and you might know them, like you don't really know what questions to ask because maybe you're not really up to date on what's going on in their lives, you know, because a lot of talent, they have upcoming projects, but a lot of them aren't promoting it. So how are you supposed to know? So it's just important to have somebody that knows what's going on in your life to kind of pitch it or talk to people about it or ask a photographer like, hey, can you take a picture of my client? so that they do show up on Getty or, whatever website. What's the other one that they have? Is it
PR Wire?
No, there's another photo agency. It's like just not coming to
I love when I get it. I love when I get those emails for an event. They're like, is there Getty image coverage? For sure. And I think it's actually really smart that people do ask that sort of question because then they're prepared for that. They know that somebody should have the card with their name on it.
Yeah.
Walking with them. And I think it's those little things that a lot of people forget or don't even really plan on doing just because the little details are really how you can make it super successful versus just, you showed up, you get the check mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, I know we covered a lot of different like business topics, but you're constantly working. How do you find like a time for a personal life? Because I think that's really like an important thing for people to kind of have.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that. I usually just work most of the time, and I think my job doesn't feel like a job. A lot of people kind of like, oh, you're at all these parties. And I think even though half the time I'm working, half the time I'm socializing and having like a personal life. So unfortunately, my personal time is, oh, we're going to this Boohoo event and French Montana's performing, So I kind of look at that as it's personal time too. Or just going to the gym. I rarely have just like regular lunches or usually even like vacations now, it seems like they're just work trips. So,
I mean, you're going to Paris next week?
Yeah, that one's actually going to be kind of a personal trip, but you never know. I always find some way to work. So I'll probably like try to reach out to some brand and or do some influencer trip or something. There's always some work that comes out of anything that I do.
Yeah, I think it's really trippy because it's more than just a business relationship. And a lot of times, like for me, I'm much more involved with the talent that I work with. They actually end up becoming my actual friends. Yes. I've attended a lot of their weddings. I'm involved in like, when their pets get sick, I get a text message about it. And I actually care because that's my actual friend. I spend more time than I do with the people I work with than, just people I knew growing up. Yeah. And I think I also enjoy my friends in the industry. Like I like going to a lot of these events because all of us are all working so much that it's really hard to like schedule lunches or breakfasts or dinners because a lot of them are based on current projects. And if there's not a current project with someone, the only time I really get to see them is either at an event or we plan something out a couple weeks in advance.
Yeah, I know.
Which is a bit of a trip. Now, what would you say your spirit animal is?
Gosh, my spirit animal? Maybe a lion?
Okay. Why a lion?
I don't know.
That didn't sound confident. That didn't sound like you're actually a lion.
I mean, I think it's just funny that it's a lion, but...
Okay, I'm going to flip the question.
Okay.
If you could be any insect, what insect would you be?
An insect. Jeez. A butterfly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like it feels free and just like, just go with the flow.
Okay. Now, I know you're one of the better connected people in LA just because you meet a lot of people going to all these things.
Yeah.
Who's somebody that you haven't met yet that you would want to meet? Dead or alive?
Dead or alive that I want to meet? Oh, geez. I want to meet Oprah. Yeah. I love Oprah. Like, I think she's one of those people that when I hear her speak, I just feel so educated and she warms my heart. She's an example of somebody that I want to be more like. She's just full of wisdom and very caring. And I love her. I miss her shows. Like, I miss listening to her talk all the time. So, yeah, Oprah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
No, she has a really cool, the OWN network, like that lot that they have off of Formosa is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Have you been there yet?
Yeah, I've been there a few times. They've been like a few parties. I think Pharrell had a party. Kris Jenner, I think, had a party there. I think it was like a birthday party. Yeah. There's a lot of great parties on that lot.
Yeah, it's a very iconic, historic lot, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a lot about like what makes something successful, but I think one of the most important parts of business or being an entrepreneur or really doing stuff in entertainment is there's a lot of failure. We're all in a business of constant failure. Can you give like one or two examples of like a project that you were working on that ended up like not going in the right direction, how you went about like dealing with that? Because a lot of times, even at events that I've produced or events that my best friends have thrown, I've had clients show up and have issues at the door. And, I've been a part of big events and then the fire marshal shows up. So I'd love to hear like a story.
Do you think having issues at the door is failure?
I don't think it's a failure. I think it's more of a setback depending on the client that you have because, some talent gets overwhelmed. But I'm talking more about failure as in like something that you're working on, either the deal went away and then you have to like repivot because you only have so many hours to work on any project.
Oh, geez. Well, I can name a couple. Like a couple came to my mind when you asked. I don't know if I want to name names.
Yeah, you don't have to name the actual project. You can just say a project.
So, I was working with a brand and an influencer. And I was really excited about this project because I really heard great things about this app. Gosh, I kind of want to call them out. And I was really excited to work with this influencer because we haven't like actually worked on a deal, but we like hung out and she's like a huge influencer, like definitely over 15 million followers. So I was like, wow, this is great. Like I want to work with this girl and this app. And so basically it took months of like back and forth. I got a contract. The influencer signed it. And then all of a sudden, like the influencer or her new manager or whatever emailed me and said that they weren't doing the deal anymore after everything's been done, after I worked on it for probably like 3 months or so. And I was like so upset about it. It was like a really good deal. I was going to make like a good commission off of it. And I was just kind of like, wow, why? And then when I tried to contact the manager, he wouldn't return my phone calls. And when I tried to contact the influencer, she didn't talk to me. I think she like wrote me something, like some response, but like I wanted to like talk in depth and like find out what happened, but didn't want to talk to me. So that was kind of interesting. And even with the brand wouldn't even talk to me about it. So I just thought that was just really weird that nobody was getting back to me. And then finally, I found a contact for, I think, somebody high up in the company, either the CEO or VP or something of the app. And like, hey, I was working with your employee on this deal, and then just didn't hear anything back. Basically, like the talent backed out, and I was trying to get a hold of your employee about it to discuss it, and he won't get back to me either. So actually, I think I didn't follow up. Finally, like I think whoever was in charge got back to me with a contact, and we were supposed to get on a phone call, but I haven't followed up with that yet. And then, that was kind of a bummer. And then, so like a lot of people that work with influencers and brands, there's a lot of deals that just like fall through for whatever reason. And I don't even really know what happened, to be honest. I think
you got ghosted. That's really what it is. People in business ghost more than like people in interpersonal relationships.
I think what happened was that they wanted more money for some reason and they just decided not to go with it. I really don't know. But because of that, I'm like, I don't invite that influencer anywhere. And if I'm running an event, like I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like I'm not just, so basically she like just kind of cut off her line when it comes to me and events, because I had taken this influencer to a few great events. So too bad for her. And then, I was working on another deal with an app as well. And what happened? Okay, so there was like, I I feel like I need to like explain more so it makes sense. But so we got the deal done. The influencer did what they were supposed to do with the app, and then just never got paid. And that happens sometimes where the brand doesn't pay. But the problem with that one is that I was going through a third party. So it was like somebody that works with the brand and brings tons of influencers. So I was going through this person. This person wasn't paying me or paying.
So the agency of record.
Yeah, the agency of record. Yeah, basically. But it wasn't like, I don't think he had that formal title of agency of record.
They're just kind of doing that job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So he didn't pay my influencer, and my influencer started getting upset at me. And so then I had to put the heat on the agency of record. And like, it was like, oh, check's in the mail. Wait a week. No, it's not. Like, I haven't gotten it. Like, if you live in LA, I live in LA. And if the check's not there in like 2 days, like, I'll believe
Uber
you.
And meet with you.
Yeah, exactly. So it can't. Then I became a bill collector, and then finally got the money. But it took me calling the app's boss, because I was trying to deal with the person that worked with the app that dealt with the agency of record, because they were like really good friends, and he wasn't helping me out. So then I had to go to somebody else above him, and then finally eventually got paid. And that check never came in the mail, by the way. So then I just stopped working with that person.
How did you get paid though? The check never came.
He Venmo'd me or something like that. Yeah.
That's such a trip.
He was like, just rip up the check when you receive it. And I was like, okay, never got the check anyway.
See, the thing that trips me up about both of those situations is there's a lifetime value to a lot of these relationships. Like even for the influencer and you make it really easy for that person to know what events are going on, where they are, because you have to be on top of it for so many more clients.
Yeah.
So even though that person has a large following of their own, they're probably not going to be aware of as many events as you are.
Yeah.
And B, you're going to streamline that whole operation for them. And C, you really only have your word as a person. And ultimately, that's one of the few things that we all have.
Yeah.
And if you enter into an agreement, you kind of have to honor that agreement.
A signed contract, yeah.
Yeah, and it trips me out because a lot of people say that, if you have a contract, it's good and dumb. But
no, it's not.
I tell people, you have to, evaluate that person that you're doing business with and that company that you're doing business with, because a contract is really only worth as much as you're willing to invest in fighting to enforce that contract.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, unless you get that money, contracts, it's going to cost you so much to just even fight for the money within the contract. So,
in my opinion, I think if it's less than $20,000, it's not worth taking it to court.
Yeah.
Because you're going to pay more than that, because most good lawyers charge between $500 to $1,000 an hour.
Yeah. And these are like big apps. Like, these aren't like small little mom and pop companies. Like, my issues that I've had with, it's funny that I'm mentioning all of these are like apps, but
and truthfully, I'd have to say from my experience too, tech companies and apps are usually the companies that you run into a lot more of these issues. Like whenever I worked with a production company or a Fortune 500 brand, it's very simple. I think it's systemic to the way that a startup thrives is in chaos.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things get lost in the communication gaps, and then it's easier to swipe something under the rug in a lot of these organizations than it is to address it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think the problem of like people being unresponsive or ghosting when they don't have a positive response is something that needs to change.
Yeah.
In the business landscape at the very least.
Yeah. That's like the only time it's ever happened to me, to be honest, because even though I don't have like millions of followers, I think people like know me as somebody that can give them a lot of access to a lot of different things. And I don't just, give people access to events. Like, I bring brand deals to people, or, like I've actually even like gotten like television auditions and things like that. So there's a lot to it. Or, hooking people up with managers, or agents, those are all like very important things that whatever I can help you with, like I'll help you. And I think it just like boils down if you're a good person and if I think you're talented. So, yeah, that's too bad. So I think it's very important to not burn your bridges with people, especially in LA, because people can be very petty and bitter if you just do the wrong thing with them. So,
well, it emotionally hurts just as a person, if
Yeah.
you put effort into someone and they just kind of bail on that.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of like these influencers too, they might be hot one year and then the next year somebody else is going to replace them. I think with Brittany Furlan, who I love, she kind of experienced that when she was like #1 on Vine. And then when the app just flopped, it was gone. Then she had to almost kind of rebuild herself on Instagram. And she didn't regain the same popularity that she did on Vine. And I tell a lot of these influencers that don't just depend and don't think that you're always going to be here, because sometimes these apps, they're going to die. There's going to be some other new technology that's going to take over. And then all the work that you did, depending on that one app, might be gone. And then what are you going to do? You got to cross over. You got to have other things that are going for you. So Batch is doing great because he's on YouTube. He's on Instagram. He has like a bunch of TV shows and films on Netflix. So
And he has Zeus coming out soon too.
Yeah. So I mean, he's like, he has that magic portfolio that if like one's not doing well, then these other ones are doing well, and so he's always going to be set. And I think a lot of these other influencers need to do the same thing.
I mean, that's something that Warren Buffett says. You need to have multiple streams of income. And
Exactly.
for me, the way that I learned it was, I remember I was at a bank ATM and just a long line. So I like meeting people. So I'm just like sociable and start conversations. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I work with this company. And at that point I was like, I think I was like 22. So I'm just fresh out of college. And he's like, well, what are you doing like for your 401k plan? And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing with my 401k plan, but I work at the company. So I get a great rate on the company's stock. So I'm putting a lot of my money into that. And this was like a 60, 70-year-old guy. And he's like, I run multiple like massive investment companies because it's Boston. So a lot of people are bankers.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm going to tell you something. And I don't mean this to be offensive, but you're putting all of your eggs in that one basket of that one company that you work at. So if you get let go, all you have is their stock. And if that company tanks, then you don't even have that.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And that's why I've always diversified my business. I have my talent business. I have my strategy consulting. I do a lot of the personal coaching for, just people trying to build a network or learn social skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you're really great at. And I think that's something that publicists in general are amazing at, because a lot of people view publicity as either just events, just PR. What I think would be really beneficial for a lot of people to hear from your own words is, what does a publicist actually do? And like, how many different like lanes could that possibly go into?
I mean, a publicist is generally just supposed to bring awareness to a brand or an event or for talent. So awareness could be through a write-up, on a online publication or magazine or television show, interview. Now it's social media, podcast. I mean, whatever. Just awareness. So obviously the bigger the exposure, the better. And yeah.
No, that's dope. Now, before we kind of wrap up, I'd love to have you share like a couple of the big projects that you're working on that you're allowed to talk about. Because I know a lot of stuff is under NDA a lot of times.
Yeah.
So what are some projects that you're excited about that you're working on?
Well, I can talk about Lexi Pantera. She's an influencer that I work with, but she's also a musician. So I'm like Batch, I'm kind of helping her transition more into the music space and less of the social media world. She still has a huge following and she's still going to be doing her social media content, but we're focusing more on music. So like she just recently had an interview with Beats One at Apple Music, which is great. And a lot of the write-ups that we're working on is focusing on her music And yeah, and I think that I'm really excited about her. She has some great music. She has a song with like Marshmello, a song with Mozzie. She has a song with producer Louis Bell, who produced like Havana and Rockstar and Congratulations. I mean, he's worked on some great records, and they have a great record together too.
Jess has a great energy as a person.
Yes.
Like she's super sweet and introduces herself to every single person.
Yeah, she's very open. I think she's a little too open. Sometimes I'm like, don't talk to everybody. But yeah, no, she's super open. She loves people and she has such great energy, and her music is amazing. And I feel like she is one of these like underrated talent out there. But she's starting to make a buzz and people are starting to take notice of her. So she just recently had a meeting with WME, and she had one with UTA. So there might be a little agency war. And even Sal & Co., they manage The Weeknd and French Montana and Belly. We just sent a bunch of her music. They're interested in her. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah, it's interesting how things are changing for her. And so I'm excited about that. I'm just excited for all her music to come out. And then I have another musician that I'm working with. I don't know if I can talk too much about this one, but
little teaser.
I don't know. I don't know if I can bring anything. He's really sensitive about some of the stuff that I talk about, so I better not say anything just to be on the safe side. Okay. But yeah,
you can just plug who the artist is if you want or not.
Yeah, it's kind of like really big news. But yeah, I'm working with a male artist. He's going to be signing to a huge label. But it's not public yet. So
okay, you gotta wait until that actually happens.
Yeah, but he's pretty well known. So we'll talk about that later. And still working with Disney. They always have all these like great premieres. Lion King's coming up, so I think like Beyonce's on it. Childish Gambino, Chance the Rapper. It's all these like great, huge artists that are going to be on there. Let's see what else. Just working with clothing brands. I love Pretty Little Things. I love what they're doing with their clothing brand, and yeah, and just doing events. There's Emmys are coming up, so we're working on some stuff, and then hopefully I'll be working with the Academy this year. Last year I had a meeting with them. But it was just kind of like short, like a time constraint. But they really want to do like an influencer program because they realize that they can't just focus on traditional media. Like they need views from social media. So we're going to work on a campaign for next year. Yeah.
I mean, that's huge because realistically for me, the reason I started focusing more on like digital talent and like digital projects versus just the traditional projects is that's the new version of TV.
Yes.
And it's really interesting that, they're starting to be aware of that because, like, I have pictures with tons of celebrities and, like, some of my best friends are, like, touring artists.
Yeah.
And my little cousins that are, like, in, like, 13 to 20 years old, they don't care about any of that. Well, they freak out that I know some random influencer that, like, I just randomly met somewhere and they're like, oh, my God, you know that person?
Yeah.
Like, that's so, like, crazy because that's the new generation of what a celebrity is.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of the like little kids, for some reason, they only know like social media influencers. They don't really know any big actors or anything like that.
It's also like, toy commercials were big when I was a kid. Now there are little 3-year-old kids that are pulling in 6 to 7 figures doing like toy hauls.
I know.
So it's really kind of a paradigm shift of how people are buying. It's really back to person-based selling, like a door-to-door salesman, but it's just doing it in a digital way.
Oh, yeah. It's so direct now through social media.
Yeah, it's direct selling, just with a digital format, which is pretty
great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great.
So where can people follow you online to keep up with your adventures?
I I'm just on Instagram mainly at Sharon Eva and the number 1. So SharonEva1. I am on Twitter. I am on Facebook, but I don't really use that too much. But yeah, so yeah, watch my stories. I usually go to some cool events and post some funny stuff. But yeah.
And Brittany Ferlin made a filter.
Oh, yeah. That was funny. You watched that?
I saw that whole thing. It was so funny.
Oh, my gosh. That was the best. I miss the Sharon filter. Yeah, Brittany Ferlin, she had this character that she made with this Snapchat filter, but they only put it up once in a while, and then we just do this whole skit. It's hilarious.
Publicist-influencer.
Yes.
Oh, that's dope. Well, I really want to thank you for coming on this episode of New Hollywood. For the rest of you guys, be sure to download, subscribe, follow. We're on iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, pretty much anywhere that you can download a podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at New Hollywood, and you can follow me at Ashwin Jacob. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you got some great knowledge on how to run an event and also how to get into an event from Sharon. Be sure to follow her. She's always up to some of the really cool projects.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.